IT Expo, Los Angeles, California, 2008.
Hi, welcome to IT Expo, coming to you live from Los Angeles, California. I'm Eric Lanask, and I'm very pleased to be joined this morning by Alan Percy, Director of Product Development for AudioCodes. Welcome, Alan.
Thanks for having us.
So we've certainly had a lot of interactions over the phone with the wonderful webinar series that AudioCodes has done. It's good to see you in person as well.
Yeah, that's great. It's been a very successful experience for us. So
fantastic. A lot of what we've talked about, what you've talked about during those sessions, are some of how IP has changed the communication space. Can you get a little bit into how IP communications has helped evolve the scenario?
yeah, there's probably two big areas that we've seen that IP and of course how SIP has really changed the marketplace. Mm-hmm. But the first thing we think is one of the most important things is this: it's because it's changed the underlying infrastructure of the communication system, and we've seen whole new applications start to take off. Now, our whole webinar series and what we've been talking about this last year has been about how SIP enables these new applications. But in addition to that, we've been highlighting some of our partners and showing what they've been able to accomplish, which we think has been really well received in the market. But some of those applications are really good examples. For example, what we've been able to do with Microsoft and their unified communication strategy, some of the changes in the contact center space, certainly security, as our last webinar discussed. Those are all things that really weren't possible with the old TDM infrastructure. So that voice over IP and SIP has been a real foundation of making those happen.
So, as you mentioned, some of the applications are changing largely due to the evolution of SIP. But right. How has SIP helped change the way applications are designed and built?
Sure. Well, probably the biggest thing we see is that because now we have a standard protocol that we can use between different separate components. So what can happen is a manufacturer like AudioCodes could go off and develop one of those components on its own, and then through interoperability testing meet up with other market players later on in time. And that allows us to work on our individual pieces separately, but then integrate the components, towards much closer towards the customer deployment. And what this does then is it avoids a lot of the traditional waterfall development cycle that's very long and very slow. And we can be much more responsive to the market needs, and that's where these new applications have come out to solve customer needs. So it's been the fact that we can work on our own individual pieces and then integrate it at the last second has been really the biggest change with the introduction of SIP.
And is that really what's driving the marketplace today? Is that your ability to work with the partners that you've talked about?
Absolutely. The ecosystem has changed from the traditional 4 or 5 big network equipment providers who own the vast majority of the market to a much more modular or ecosystem-based marketplace, so that now smaller players can enter the space and build niche applications for specific areas. Hospitality or legal space or other verticals can build very powerful enhanced applications based on those building blocks. And before, you had to wait for the majors to get around to deciding that market vertical needed something special and then do the development. So really, I think it really has changed, but not only the economics, but who can access the market. So it's very different.
Mm-hmm. What are some of the kinds of applications that your customers are looking for?
Some of the areas that we've seen real good success has been certainly, the contact center space was very early to recognize the value of voice over IP and SIP. And the service provider space, certainly, many of the cable companies and many of the traditional providers have recognized that delivering their services over IP, the last mile, and of course the core of their networks, those are probably the spaces that we've seen the earliest adoption, and now we're starting to see it trickle through the rest of the marketplace.
When you say trickle through the rest of the marketplace, does that also include just overall adoption of SIP-based calling?
Yeah. So the early adopters. As a matter of fact, tomorrow's keynote, Sharon will be talking about this. That where we are along on our the crossing the chasm curve. Where are we in that space? And certainly the early adopters have made aggressive steps towards adopting this technology. Now the trick is what do we need to do? What do we need to do to get to the rest of the market? So how do we make it more practical, more cost-effective, and bring along the rest of the market? So other applications, the traditional PBX applications, voice application, conferencing, others like that, bring them forward leveraging SIP. So I think that's the next big area.
And what can we look forward to from AudioCodes as you look to
Sure.
get to the rest of that market?
Right. So the biggest thing that we're working on this year is this, what we call practicality in VoIP deployments. And the idea is that we want to be able to bring more of this functionality into a package that we can deliver and deploy more easily and much more cost effectively. To date, because of the separate components, separate gateways and phones and application components, the integration effort was very difficult. So now what we're seeing is that we're able to bring these pieces together, and with our multi-service business gateway, we're delivering many of those functions together in one box. So it's cheaper, it's less costly to install, and less costly to maintain. And that's really we think the next big step, which is integrating these separate components and delivering them together as a single package to the marketplace. So that's what we're showing here.
Excellent. Fantastic. Alan, thank you very much for joining me. Been talking with Alan Percy from AudioCodes, and to find out more about some of these applications and how they're being brought to market, be sure to check out AudioCodes webinar series that you can find on tmcnet.com. Thanks again, Alan.
Thanks, Eric.